Welcome to A Taste of AZ podcast, where we interview everyone from James Beard award-winning chefs to local mixologists, winemakers, breweries, and so much more. We've got an awesome episode lined up for you today. But before we get into that, head to atasteofaz.com so you can subscribe to our quarterly magazine and email newsletter to find all of the best places to eat and drink around town. Don't forget to follow us on social media. Now let's get into the episode. Hello, A Taste of AZ listeners. We are here today at, the most storied cocktail bar, or the most historic, however you want to put it. You might be able to phrase it a little bit better, but I won't put you on the spot. But go ahead and introduce exactly where we are and who you are in relation.
Sure, of course. We're coming to you today from UnderTow in Arcadia, right at 36th and Indian School. The very, very first UnderTow was actually underneath the Sip Coffee and Beer Garage that is adjacent. And then, a couple of years ago when things started to go wonky, we moved it out of the basement and into this building so that we could kind of redesign it and upgrade it a little bit. So it's been in here since, 21. The concept's been around since 16. Mm-hmm. And it originally came out of an idea that, to be below decks on kind of like an 1860s spice trading ship. And, in the 1860s, you couldn't get from New York to San Francisco without going around the bottom of the world. Mm-hmm. And so, the narrative and kind of like the historical fiction that we created followed the journey of the boat as it went around kind of like, around the bottom of the world there to bring spices and silk and pianos and safes and printing presses, etc., all the way over to San Francisco.
And you're talking about like the Cape of South America,
mm-hmm,
right? Mm-hmm. Interesting. I didn't know that specific detail, but this is the like original Century Grand concept. Is that correct?
So yes, this is the first. So the parent company is called Barter and Shake.
Yes,
and
correct.
So Barter and Shake owns some cocktail concepts, and Century Grand was originally meant to be the train and a restaurant. Mm-hmm. And the restaurant that, COVID got the restaurant. So when we took out the restaurant, we put in UnderTow. Okay. And so the space that we're sitting in here, UnderTow 2.0, was the Century Grand restaurant. And so now it's UnderTow 2.0. And then we did UnderTow 3.0 out in Gilbert in the Epicenter development that Joe Johnston put together. Great guy. A lot of fun to work with. And so now we have the two locations. We're sitting in, I guess, Mach 2, and then that's Mach 3. But here we are.
And that's why I fumbled over my intro a little bit, because I'm like, it's
won
so many
It's
awards,
not at all.
but...
It's not at all easy.
Exactly.
It's complicated even for me, and I've been around.
Well, and it's interesting too, because it's Barter and Shake is known not only for their incredible cocktails, which you can see here on the camera, but also the experience is so immersive, right? And it's pretty unbelievable. It's like you could be over there at Greyhound and, you see the train right there. Of course, you hear it go off, like an actual train right next to you.
The big whistle, yeah.
But you could have no idea that this is over here and doing all this cool stuff if you didn't really know about it.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of my favorite stories on that exact detail. There was, when the train first hit the valley, this woman came up to her server and said, if you can let me know when the train's about to stop, I do need to use the restroom. And she thought, she felt, because of the rumbling and because of the video presentations, that she would have to wait until the train stopped in order to leave and use the restroom. And that's amazing. And then number two, during the kind of the second permutation, there was a period of time in UnderTow where the theatrics had a thunderstorm, and this other guest asked if he could have one more Mai Tai and wait out the storm, thinking that there was actually rain out there. And so to that, you smile and you're like, people drunk on rum, maybe. But you also go, oh, well, we nailed it. For sure. Even if for a moment they believe that they're, you go to Las Vegas and for like no time at all do you ever believe that you're actually in Venice. Right. You're like, this isn't Venice. They don't have an Hermes next to a McDonald's. This isn't how that works in Venice. But if people are coming in here and they accidentally believe that it's raining, then great. If they come in here in the middle of the day and you sit on that patio that you guys have filmed on previously outside of the Grey Hen and they forget that it's the afternoon, that's great. Mm-hmm. Like you feel like it's the evening time in New Orleans. You feel like you're sinking into a wonderful experience, a wonderful evening in 1900s New Orleans. And then you wake up and it's 107 degrees outside and 5 o'clock.
Yep.
Like, damn it. I wish I could go back.
Got to go pick up the kids.
The kids, got to water the dog. Man.
Yeah. I mean, the only comparison that I could make as far as the level of immersiveness is like Disney World. You don't have the rides, but when I
Correct.
was over at Greyhound, and even when I just imagine it now, especially with the smoke rolling and all that stuff, every single time it takes me to the beginning of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
Heck yeah.
In Disneyland, and you got the people dining off to the right side. A little bit of a different styling and time frame, but just it almost like there it smells swampy, and I feel like when I think about Greyhound, I almost smell a little bit of the swampiness because that memory is so similarly ingrained in my head.
Does that mean you guys need to mop a little bit better?
No, that means that we have swamp water and we just spray it around. We were liberal with the swamp water spray.
I think swamp water needs to be a future cocktail on the menu.
I feel like we're always doing active development. Swamp water it is.
So how long have you been with Barter and Shake?
So that's also got some detail to it. I started in my official capacity now, which is VP of Operations.
Okay.
In December of 21.
Okay.
But Jason and I go way back, and then I met Rich through Jason. Jason was in the spirits industry, and I was down the street working for Sam Fox for 17 years or something like that.
Wow.
And so, in our travels, Jason's travels and my travels sometimes together, he would talk about how they were going to do this, how they were going to do that. And I would remind him every once in a while that I actually have an English literature, creative writing, and French background, which of course you go directly into bars with that lineup on your CV, right? So he's like, oh, I'm like, do you guys want me to like write you a short story for this? And he's like, would you? And I'm like, yeah. And I was, at the time I was crisscrossing the United States on an airplane multiple times a month. And, when it's dark outside and they already gave you your gin and tonic, then the words just flow. And so I would send them, I'd say, okay, this is what I think. And they go, wow, all right, great. So before I even joined the team in an official capacity, I was helping in an anonymous category with the fiction that led to UnderTow and the fiction that led to Century Grand, kind of fleshing out that narrative that they wanted to do a train. They wanted it to be in, the Rocky Mountains. They wanted it to be kind of like a steel tycoon in the 20s. And I would say, okay. And then I would flesh that out and give it to them. And then that would inform some of their decisions. And it was a really symbiotic relationship.
And did you do that for Greyhound as well?
Yeah. Greyhound never really had, and we were talking about it a second ago, it never really had a published narrative. And so the story that everybody knows about the Greyhound is that it's Emily Gray is the protagonist of that story. And the menu in here that was kind of the book with the short story and the illustrations, and the same for the train that had the illustrations, it lent itself to that kind of book style. But the Greyhound has always been a little bit more relaxed, and it led itself to more of kind of like a two-sided menu that you could just kind of read and enjoy. But we're gonna be switching that concept up over the summertime too. I'm not sure I'm supposed to tell you, but
too late.
We are.
Too late.
There's just going to be like the colored bars on the screen, but beep for like
exactly.
5 seconds.
Yeah, the front door. We're gonna do the front door in static. People can walk in.
Did you real quick question? So did your your literature and that background, did it lie dormant for a while? Like, or were you always kind of creating?
I wish that I could say yes, but it did. It fell dormant. It got dusty, and it was a wonderful excuse for me to be able to like dust that off on those long plane rides, and kind of take a few words and turns of phrase, and those would end up being, they would pull, Jason and Rich would pull some of the cocktail names out of the narrative itself, and so indirectly, I was contributing to that whole process. And yes, to your initial question, it had gotten dusty, and I was really pleased to dust it off.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Because obviously you love something. What?
I was gonna say, like an old pirate, he picked up the pirate hat and dusted it off. And an old like telescope, he picked up the old pen and paper.
Gotta clean out the front of the telescope.
Running the pencil sharpener.
That's exactly right. Here we go, boys.
And so you mentioned that you had been with Fox Restaurants for a long time. Yeah. How did you exactly fall into the mixology side of things?
A good friend and longtime mentor, his name is Regan Jasper, and he lives down in Tucson. And so he was the original beverage director for Sam starting in 1998. And he was a wine guy, still is a wine guy. He lives down in Tucson. Just had a baby boy. He's doing good. But when I came aboard, I joined in 2004 and was kind of like working in the bars and working in the restaurants. And then in 2010, they needed somebody to kind of do the bar standards and do the bartending practices and all that other jazz. And I was really excited to continue studying wine having gotten my Psalm 1 and Psalm 2. And I'm like, I'm going to be wine. And I looked at Regan and I go, I'm going to be wine. He goes, I'm wine. And I was like, oh, no. He goes, you be cocktails and beer. And I said, yeah, okay, I'm cocktails and beer. And so, I went on Amazon. I borrowed his credit card and I went on Amazon and bought like 30 or 40 books and started reading. And from that point forward, I designed all of the cocktail menus for all of the concepts from 2010 to 2020. Now they've got, a team of people over there. They're doing great. They're in expansion mode again. And so never has there been a better time to be good at training people and making sure that they're upholding standards and stuff. But that's how I got into the mixology world. And then Jason was working at a distributor in town. And so, he and I would meet a couple times a month to talk about what's new in the spirits industry, what's new in the cocktail game. He and I faced off a few times in cocktail competitions. He squarely and roundly kicked my ass. But when he eventually had to retire and become a judge, then he was on the other side, and I think he was pretty nice to me when I was competing and he was judging. Oh, there's no conspiracy here, folks. I'm not alluding to a conspiracy.
Someone's writing to some cocktail association.
Right. I knew I should have gotten third. No, he didn't hand out the victories. I got a third place maybe when I was supposed to get a fourth every once in a while. Yeah.
Did you happen to be the guy who sat with the cider core guys on a patio and tasted their ciders for the first time?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Nice, dude. When you were saying that, I just felt that was
no, that was me, and I wrote them like proof of concept, a letter for their bankers.
Nice.
Yeah,
wow. Dude, that's awesome.
They came in and I said, well, what are you doing? How are you doing it? What does it cost? And they were just like, oh my God, we don't know any of these answers. I said, okay, well then let's taste it. And if it tastes good, then learn the answers and come back.
Yeah.
And so then we said, okay, great. And then they brought in all their ciders, and I got a couple of the burgeoning chefs from Culinary Dropout to kind of put together a tasting dinner.
Wow.
To kind of introduce them into the market. I said, tell everyone that you know, tell everyone that we know, tell this person, tell that person. And like they brought in like hand pumped kegs, and they were just like, serving that sweet cinnamon apple cider.
Yeah.
Just neat with some monkey bread from Culinary Dropout. And, see them today. They're still going strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kicking
that's
ass.
Great.
Great dudes too.
Yeah.
Great
time.
team there. Yeah.
I think I don't know if this is new for them, but I just saw them post about it that they're shipping nationwide now. So
that's great.
Big. Yeah. Don't quote me on that because it was a quick glance, but yeah, I mean, that's so incredible that you were a part of that. And I guess that just, it's beautiful to see that you've gone from that and remained in the industry. And now you're doing such incredible things over here.
Yeah.
So let's jump to here where we're at now.
Let's talk about it.
Give a little bit of a background of where kind of UnderTow is at with it in mind that, around the time that the menu switch that you'll be discussing, we'll be probably releasing this maybe like a week or two before then.
Of course. So it's now magically late May, early June. We're getting
the lights are starting to change. Also.
You guys think time travel is complicated? It's not. And so we're, as of, in transitioning to a new menu, we've got kind of a bridge menu, and that bridge menu combines some great classic tiki cocktails, and it combines some of the guest favorites from this most recent chapter, and then some new stuff from the next chapter. And then, starting June 4th, we'll roll out a whole new menu and a whole new saga. And so when I say saga, like, our protagonist is a guy named Captain Mallory. Captain Mallory started at the very first menu in New York City, and then they made their voyage all the way around to San Francisco. And so that voyage has concluded. That was 1860s, 1868, late 1860s. And so this new voyage actually takes us to like 1565 Yucatan Peninsula, which is kind of a stretch for people to be like, what? But, the fact of the matter is that, the Yucatan is wild and rich with a lot of new flavors and a lot of new spirits and a lot of new other kinds of things. And, we're not going to like subvert electricity and air conditioning to try to make it mimic 1565 by any stretch of the imagination.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. But we're going to gently lean on, Aztec and Mayan and Spanish and kind of the exploring culture. And we're going to introduce a new protagonist who's kind of like a female pirate queen who's coming back in search of, a treasure that she has been destined to find her birth, kind of a thing, And so then this saga will probably be two or four chapters, but this will be the first one where you kind of get the origin story of our new pirate queen, and you get a part of the new menu that's all clarified punches and clarified drinks of that nature, clarified with banana, clarified with rice milk, clarified with buttermilk, clarified with all kinds of things. That entire section celebrates the famous goddesses of the Aztec world. Wow. And so it's like the goddess of creation and the goddess of mystery and earth. And
I think it's so interesting because, you hear, the story behind a business, but it's always, oh, we were doing this and wanted to do that. I haven't heard too many places where their concept comes out of like a purely creative writing perspective. And maybe it's not necessarily like that and you describe it differently. But for me, it's like as you're describing the saga, there's so many different things going on in my head. And I'm like, one of the first things, is it going to be more agave spirit focused, being that it's in that region, or is that not really part of the story?
There's going to be some inclusion of agave, and there's going to be some inclusion of Mexican rum. The Europunch Ronda style rum and the aged rum. And so when you're in the boat and you're seeing on the menu that you've got a Pai Ai and a Mai Tai and a Blue Hawaii, like your brain goes to rum, your brain goes to kind of like tropical and island drinks. And so we're not going to stray too far from that with some of the drinks. Some of the traditional sours will be in there and they'll be clean and crisp and tangy. But then some of the more trend setting things that are a little bit more on point from a mixology and cocktail industry standpoint, that's where you get some of the more advanced techniques and some of the more layered flavors that are coming in that are going to be prevalent.
Well, like I'm familiar with clarified milk punches, but I only knew about that being done with milk, but that's not the only way to clarify.
No. And, Jason's putting together, poor guy, he said that he was on slide 92 of he's putting together this beautiful presentation on clarification, because he's been working on it now for 6-8 months, like different ways to clarify things. And it's all about, if he were sitting here, he'd give you the science, and it's a lot of good science. But we've clarified now with things like bentonite clay and potato starch and buttermilk and sour cream and rice flour. And and so it's on a chemical and molecular level, it's what strips clean that liquid. And so there's also some polysorbonates and amylases and other things of that nature that you can also use to clarify. But really it depends on what you're trying to get out of the cocktail, where sometimes milk will strip some of that kind of like silky, elegant mouthfeel. But if you use something else, like we clarified something with bananas on this one, and so that it just comes off as that kind of that round, soft, fruity edge to it. It's a lot of fun. They're having a lot of fun back there.
I say this in the most endearing way. I love the dynamic that the incredible nerdiness creates here.
Oh man,
from
nerds
the
are the
background
superstars.
Story to a 92-page clarification thing. I mean, that's the nerdiest cocktail thing I've ever heard.
No, none of the other nerds stand a chance. Not even close.
It's like that. If you needed proof that when nerds band together, they are strong, this is exactly where to go for it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And combined, you become cool. In a way,
I don't know
it's
about
like really
that,
like forming like Voltron in the cocktail room.
I think we're one
cool.
individual away from Voltron.
Yeah.
You add Rich Fernari in, and so obviously you two are looking at it and you can't see it, but most recently we added some of these vines in here, and we're updating the music and the sound effects and all of the other things to make it feel a little bit more, maybe not more 1565, but a little bit more coastal Mexico kind of a scenario and situation. And that's our third geek is Rich Fernari, and he loves this stuff. Like he loves it. He thinks that if the environment is, no environment is a single thing done a single way. And if you do it right, people will forget who they are and where they are, if only for a moment. And that's what really grinds his gears. He loves that.
Absolutely.
I think it's cool because so some places you go to and they have a theme and the drinks are named after that theme, and maybe the description kind of goes up. This is 10 layers deeper though, right? Where this kind of implements great drinks with almost like a movie or like a book experience, right? It's like sitting there having a drink and reading a great book or watching a movie or something. There's so much to it.
And that's, I didn't realize, we have an internal joke, since we're all to your point, nerds. But we have an internal joke, and I go, really, guys, like, how many people read the story? And they're like, I don't know, maybe nobody, maybe everybody. I don't know. This happened, this. And when we began to get ready for not this February 24 launch on the train, but the one before that, the entire team was like, what's happening with the fiction? What's happening? Where is he in New Orleans? Is the train going to New Orleans? How are they going to get the train to New Orleans? And I was like, oh my God, people are paying attention to this. And then suddenly I had this imposter syndrome followed by writer's block. And I was like, stop it. Just stop it. You need to get on a plane. You need to have a little bit of gin tonic, and then you write that puppy.
The process.
It's just the process.
Yeah.
Because, the fingers get itchy otherwise.
I mean, I can't imagine developing a place like this without that level of investment in the creative component of it.
Yeah.
And without a team of people that share the expertise to be able to create that, but also the passion for it. So,
thank you.
Quite incredible. So
we're having like a lot of fun too. Don't think that we come to work every day dreading, oh my God, we got to find a way to get the vines in there. No, everybody has so much fun putting all of this together, and like, and creating something that we hope that, maybe 10% of people will enjoy on all 9 levels. They'll be like, this is super geeky and super cocktaily and super narrative and super this. And then maybe somebody else will come in here and have 5 Mai Tais and like be on a third date, and they really love that too. So our goal is to be, universal in appeal. And then it's a little like Easter eggs in dorky movies where you're like, you know what? This is, right underneath that map over there, there's Jason's first son, Riker, has his hand carved into the bar, and you wouldn't know that unless you asked somebody. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And you can't create a truly immersive experience without those details. It shows through quickly. Like, I love a bar that looks cool and, gives this kind of experience in some sense, or at least is shooting for it. But you can tell when they've put the amount of investment that you guys have in, which you don't really see often. And that's why you guys are who you are. And then you kind of can tell if it's just people creating an atmosphere more than an experience behind it, if that makes sense.
100%. Absolutely.
So we have several cocktails laid out right here that correspond with the greatest hits menu, being that it's
and
some that
I
will
chose,
go out, right?
I chose some that would actually correspond with the new menu. So these are the ones that we're highlighting for the greatest hits, and then these are going to carry on the way through. And so if you want me to just kind of like point and address them, I will.
And I will taste them as you do.
As you do. There you go. Okay. So this first one is Eyes Like Starlight. And Eyes Like Starlight comes through from a part of the fiction where, the description of this pirate queen, that, she's a little bit ethereal in appearance and in nature. And so the description of Eyes Like Starlight came out real nice. And then there's another cocktail on the new menu called She with Raven Hair, which kind of alludes to her mother, who's a Spanish colonist. But this is a carbonated cocktail. The Eyes Like Starlight, we're going to be bringing 3 carbonated cocktails. Carbonated cocktails are also part of the zeitgeist right now, where you're making a beautiful cocktail and then you're carbonating it in-house, as opposed to just kind of like, putting it on your house carbonator or whatever. There's actually a little bit of science and a little bit of technique to carbonating, and you want a crisp bubble that pays attention to the flavor profile that you're looking for. And so this one is strawberry, and it's got that makroot lime leaf, which is kind of like a kaffir lime leaf, that very aromatic kind of Thai. It's used a lot in Thai cuisine, as well as gin and coconut and tamarind and lime.
Wow, when you break down all the different flavors, it's absolutely delicious.
Good.
Yeah.
I wish I could say my palate was trained enough to pick them all up beforehand.
Yeah.
But it's definitely one that, I'm not going to pound the whole thing, but as you
take
the
last ounce has all of the flavors in it. So you do have to pound the whole thing.
I'll do it for research purposes.
That's right. I mean, it's not for science, it's for art.
I could drive you home, Luke. You do your thing, man. I got you.
But
he's laying in the parking lot. Is he okay?
So the lime leaf that you're talking about, I don't know if it's like that specifically, but like some rinds have an earthy component to them, but then there's also the gin. So it's hard to discern whether it's the gin botanicals versus that. But correct me if I'm wrong. That is almost, it seems like the way to build a truly layered cocktail is to kind of mimic different flavors. Would you agree with that, or why? I think that
I think that you would add ingredients that are harmonious, and you would hope that what Jason gets credit for in this industry is willing to go above and beyond, willing to go, to do things that people can't do or that they won't do. And then the other cool thing, and I don't know if he always goes into it knowing this is going to happen, but it always happens. He's kind of a show off for it. But when you start a cocktail, especially one that he's really worked on for a long time, as it continues to dilute a little bit, the flavor profile changes and kind of like matures.
Sure.
And it's crazy. It's crazy bananas. Like you will get 3 flavors out of the top of the drink, and you'll get 3 totally different flavors or totally more mature aged flavors out of the bottom of the drink. It's awesome. It's one of the things that he does, whether he knows it or not, but it's one of his secret powers for sure.
Absolutely. Let's take a quick break and then we'll jump back into the next
Sure,
cocktail.
of course, absolutely.
A real quick reminder, head over to atasteofaz.com and subscribe to our email newsletter. Also, subscribe to A Taste of AZ magazine and get it shipped right to your door. Now let's get back into today's episode.
But it's stuff like this too. This mocktail that you guys made up for me that just kind of makes it a lot easier too.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not.
And the NA beer scene right now is awesome,
dude. Unreal. Yeah, for sure.
And they're that you look at any of the market research or whatever, they're up like 430%.
Dang.
Quarter over quarter.
Yeah.
Something. You look at Market Watch, it's crazy.
Yeah. So I'm today's a little tough. Today's a little tough seeing this stuff, but no. Well, I was gonna say, are we rolling again?
Yes.
Okay. I was gonna say that's really cool because sometimes when a drink gets diluted, right? The ice just melts and then it's just kind of a watered down version. It feels less strong. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So to be able to execute that where it's all the way through, that's incredible.
It's a skill and a talent, and it's encouraging people to savor. It's encouraging people to, enjoy the environment. It's encouraging people to take their time and really enjoy the company around them and et cetera.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that it happens that way.
Absolutely. And so this cocktail, Spectacular, we also have several more up here. Would you speak about kind of these two if you wouldn't mind?
Sure. Of course. So this one right here is the aphrodisiac, the Aztec aphrodisiac. A lot of people might know that kind of a lot of what we know about chocolate is attributed to the Aztecs, and that they used it in some ceremony and in kind of daily life as an aphrodisiac. And so since we were going to be putting that cornflake chocolate piece, we actually have some extra cornflake pieces right there.
Is this chocolate boozy?
Oh,
no.
Nice.
Eric, I'll give this to you.
We actually have some extra ones too if you want them.
I'll take the extra one. You can take this one.
Oh, you guys make these in-house too.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so with this, with the last 2 programs, we've expanded our technique and our capability in our commissary as well to make a lot of our own truffles and to make a lot of our own chocolate and to make a lot of our own kind of, ingredients that are so specialty that you would really have to either spend a lot to develop it with a local chocolatier or just forego it. And so that was not the move. So obviously this is conditioned with a cornflake milk. And so
obviously,
well, duh. I mean, I didn't have to tell you that. I
can tell by smelling it, honestly.
I can see it from across the room. It's a cornflake milk for sure. But this is conditioned with a cornflake milk. And then the chocolate piece that goes on there also has the kind of the sweet, salty chocolate. Absolutely. And it's got a little bit of that Maldon salt on the top of it. And so this cocktail is, it's meant to be some of the ingredients that are in there. You've got black barrel rum and like this 23-year-old Ronzacapa, which is like kind of a dessert all in and of itself. And then cachaça and some figgy pudding bitters. And then the cornflake milk is how we clarify that. It's good. Do you enjoy the flavor on that?
I do, yeah. When you describe your guys' cocktails, I'm like, this doesn't even sound real.
You're making shit up, dude.
Milk with figgy pudding bitters.
This has got a Merlot mixtape edge, and then we put sneaker water on the side.
Red Bull dust on the top.
That's correct.
At home, I squeeze a lime and put a little bit of like simple syrup and mix it with something, and I'm like, I did it. I made a cocktail.
Watch out, world.
And then I come here and I feel
next on the main stage.
Yeah, exactly. So serving it with the garnish that is not just a bunch of mint,
sure,
or even a strawberry. It's this delectably handcrafted chocolate that you're making
confection
in-house
for sure.
Yeah.
Are you how do you recommend eating? Is it just eat it when you want to eat it type of thing?
So I tell people that I think that the best way is to take a sip of the cocktail to allow it to coat the palate, kind of like to do the stretches, a little bit of the palate calisthenics, I suppose, and then to take a second sip of the cocktail and then have a bite of the garnish and then a third sip of the cocktail, because the flavors, especially when they first arrive, they're at their most pure, they're least, they're perfectly diluted. We've painstakingly diluted it to exactly the right point. And so the texture and the flavor profile and the aromatics, and then the garnish, especially when it's got some chocolate and some salt to it or something like that, then it really plays together with it real well.
Yeah, I'm like overly particular about how I eat certain things.
Okay.
Like if I'm having a cheese board, I will calculate like all the different mixtures I want to have and try it like that. It's ridiculous.
He's a nerd too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why I say
it's okay. We're in good company.
Yeah.
We were all bragging about how uncool we are before the podcast, and that's definitely true, at least on our side. But what I love about it is you don't necessarily get two different cocktails, but if you're really paying attention and being thoughtful about it, which is kind of what this place is all about, at least in a certain time and context. I wouldn't recommend doing this if you're just hanging out with friends and being all weird like that. But like when you eat the chocolate and then you drink the drink on top of it, the way that it kind of washes away the chocolate in your mouth not only mixes and creates a different flavor, but then, as you were saying, it changes the mouthfeel. It creates so much more of an experience around it that I think is definitely unique to not necessarily only chocolate, but chocolate being, as rich as it is, and for this as creamy and kind of, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. Like olive oil coats your palate. I think it's the fat inside the chocolate, probably.
Polyphenols.
Okay. Yeah. Which are good for.
I was impressed. That was my mind being blown out of my mouth.
No, that comes from the wine background where you're trying to tell somebody what happens when you have an overly tannic product, and so sometimes we make things with tea, and you can tell like that it adds a little bit of a tannic nature to it, and so to combat that, you want a little bit of salt, fat, protein to mix with the tannins to kind of calm it back down. But the fat molecules in your mouth, blah 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 blah. But yes, to your exact point, having the experience of the cocktail in the environment is like level 1, and then the cocktail in the environment with the narrative might be level 2, and then the cocktail in the environment with the narrative and the garnish, and then you realize that was very like painstakingly and meticulously crafted to go together, and then you get that experience. Then that's when all the lights ding. And in theory, like our goal is to make people like wiggle a little bit.
Yeah,
they just kind of get excited. They can't stop, and then you're okay, and you know that you'll see them again next week. And that's the whole goal
with a bigger group.
Bring those people in.
Yeah,
that's the level of precision I was trying to hit on earlier too, when I was saying, like, not to sound like I'm disparaging bars that aren't doing thing at this level, because only so many people can, but like the fact that it's not just served with a garnish that you can eat on top of it, a cotton candy fluff as a lot of places do, but the fact that it's made in-house specifically with the cornflakes that, you cornflake milk washed it. So of course it just makes sense. Like how are you guys the first people to come up with this? I don't know. So going to the next one, and give like a brief synopsis of what clarification is, without getting too nerdy, just because it is such a central component of this menu.
So I think at its most basic, when you make a cocktail, especially like a sour or anything like that, the particulate of the organic material from the lemon juice or the lime juice, etc., what you want to do is strip that away to protect it and like basically extend its life. So originally, I'm not going to go into a history lesson because I'm not entirely certain I'm exactly right, but historically, you would do that to preserve things. Like you would milk wash them in order to preserve them. And so we've had, just for S's and G's, for shits and gigs, we've had some clarified punches that, we put on the shelf for a year, and it's just fine. Like it stays that way.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And then the other, you're taking out any impurities, you're creating a balance to it as well. So long as that the liquid that you're going in has a pretty good flavor profile and pretty good balance and pretty good body structure, then when you clarify it on the end, it becomes harmonious. It's nice. So this other one here, this is the Goddess of Creation, which we put on the menu, and I'm hoping that the guests are adventurous enough after a cocktail or two to try to do these ancient Aztec pronunciations, but
you have pronunciations.
We do.
Written out.
Yeah. So the Goddess of Creation was Omechihuatl. which is there's no C, there's OMECIHUATL. Like, go for it. So we put in the phonics so you can be hooked on phonics. That's a joke for people our age. But in this cocktail, we're looking at this is tequila based. Let me hand this to you.
Okay.
This is a Maestro Dobel, which is very clean and smooth.
Is that the same thing as the Cristalino?
So
Or is that a certain type of
Cristalino
it?
is a type of tequila,
Okay.
and Maestro Dobel makes a good one.
Okay.
Yeah, and so basically, a Cristalino tequila is an aged tequila that they've stripped the color out
Yes.
of,
Okay.
so that people who don't like that kind of like bright, punchy green note of a regular Blanco or like a gently aged tequila, they like the clarified kind of crystallized version of an añejo tequila that's softer and rounder and a little bit more caramely. And then we've got some dark rum and coconut and pineapple, and then that's clarified with rice.
Okay.
So now the garnish is
A Rice Krispie
Rice
treat.
Krispie treat.
Yeah.
There it is.
See, I could do that.
with a touch of cinnamon over the top of it. So this one to me is a little bit more kind of confectionery and a little bit more desserty. I would say it's got kind of like a just before you have a decadent spread of desserts. It's like a nice palate cleanser before that happens.
I think it's shocking, even though I'm familiar with the whole clarification process. I've had clarified drinks before. The fact that I taste that and I taste this, and for some reason I'm expecting it to taste the same, even though I haven't seen it on the menu.
Your eyes are lying to you.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. It's totally different. It's not like if this was a different color than this was, you would not expect them to taste the way that they do at all. And I think that's it's cool too, because it's like you see them arrive and you still haven't gotten to experience that first level of just tasting the cocktail.
Correct.
It creates a little bit of mystery behind it, I guess.
Yeah, and a lot of the cocktails that are in that clarified section, and it says, "In truth, one finds clarity, and clarity one finds peace." I tripped all over that, but you
nailed it, dude.
Nailed it. Just in rum, one finds trouble to say sentences.
Which is funny because I would say you are definitely a wordsmith, especially with your background. And then, of course, you come to the thing that you just
not a
read.
good reader. Yeah.
It's left to right, top to bottom, right? Shoot.
It's up to you, actually.
It's up to
However,
you.
know.
Yeah. Peace finds one now. One truth, clarity. In any case, the finished product of a lot of these has the same kind of like bronzish, goldish kind of color to it. And then you taste them side by side, and they're all of the flavors and all of the subtle notes are all over the map.
You might as well be doing a blind tasting because it's less confusing to do a blind tasting, because at least you're like, okay, these are probably going to taste a little bit different.
Yeah. But I mean, it encourages you, and not for nothing, but when the show is going and, you guys walked in when I had the lights down so that you could see it. But when you come in here, like, your eyes are probably the third sense that you use. You're using your ears, and you're drinking correctly, I hope, and you're using your palate and your mouth and your mind, and your eyes will watch the scenery out the portholes and watch the action of the bar team and that kind of thing. But to look down at your drink and expect one thing and then be totally surprised, we dig that. That's one of the things that makes you wiggle. And
it's interesting too, because this just dawned upon me, but I'm sure it's pretty well ingrained in your guys' experiences. Like, to create a certain level of immersion, you need to obscure reality is like step number one. So, how can you convince someone that there's a storm going on in here when it's totally bright and clear skies outside?
Correct.
If you're not removing them from that. And I think this is an interesting way to do that.
Yeah. So as far as the environment, all of our environments are completely light zero. The only light that actually comes through is the front door with the barrel room. And, from photography, dark rooms back in high school, etc., that if you turn your corners more than 3 times, then the light's not going to bounce. And so then from that point on, everything is controlled, whether it's the drippy candles that are on the back bar, or the projection image of the octopus on the barrel head, or during this last episode, during a portion of the trip, the statue would actually cry, and you would get to watch the statue cry, and and then you're out in Gilbert and you watch the tikis that are adorning the side of the bar. You watch them come alive during a certain part of a tribal dance number. And so you're kind of, and if you have the right amount of rum but not too much rum, then you're watching it, and you watch people just kind of go, they just kind of lean back and they become part of the room.
Sure.
And that's when we won.
Nice.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so moving on to this next cocktail here, what do we have?
Well, I thought we were drinking today, but only you and I are drinking.
Yes.
This one,
Hey, dude,
quitter.
I've been drinking this whole time. man.
What a quitter. No, I put up a Mai Tai because, to be perfectly honest, I don't think that you can call yourself a tiki or an island style bar without a really good Mai Tai. And I think that our Mai Tai is one of the best. And there's some secrets involved in making it, so I won't go too far into it. But, when you put great rum and you put the right ice and we're making the orgeat in house, kind of like that almond syrup with the orange blossom water, etc. So we make that, and that's the secret. So I won't give you that secret. But I think our Mai Tai, I've had a few Mai Tais, maybe 100 or 2 in my year. No, in my life, and ours is always far and away the best. So if you're out there and you're listening or at home watching and you're thinking about a Mai Tai, like I am, come get one. Come get a Mai Tai. We've got one waiting for you. And then we hooked up. One of the other.
You cue me up with that Mai Tai, because I am also thinking.
You ready?
About
You ready for it?
Yes, I am.
Okay, here he comes. And so we were talking earlier, and then about kind of like this wonderful trend of sessionable non-alcoholic cocktails, right? And it used to be that a non-alcoholic cocktail was for like a woman who wasn't ready to tell people that she was pregnant yet, or
Sure.
or whatever. And now the non-alcoholic trend has gone to people who are pacing themselves, people who are taking some time away, people who, for lack of, in the honest of brevity, like, who have decided that cannabis is their preferred, their chill method.
Yep.
And so having an entire set on each menu of really delicately crafted, really like thoughtful non-alcoholic options is huge in the industry right now. Absolutely huge. And so all of ours on this new menu, we've gone, shocker, a couple of steps past where most people would go. And we've created non-alcoholic spirits from scratch.
Really?
dang.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Nice.
you imagine green chartreuse. And so say that you're a person who really enjoys drinking green chartreuse. Maybe you want a little bit on the side of like a Bavik, an ice cold Bavik, and a neat shot of green chartreuse. And that's kind of like that's how you unwind on a Friday or something. But now you're not drinking anymore. And so there's a lot of great non-alcoholic beer options, but nobody's making non-alcoholic chartreuse, but we are. And it's probably 65 different ingredients, a lot of them tea based,
Wow.
that are in very small increments, that are steeped slow or sous vide, or just to get that color and that flavor out. And so we're making, a Jamaican style rum. We're making a Dutch East India Trading Company style gin. We make bourbon. We make all of those
Wow.
things.
Yeah.
So, if you've been non-alcoholic for, you've been off the train for a minute or two, and you look at Seedlip, and what they're doing is infusing botanicals into kind of like more or less water, and those botanicals don't last very long in that water, so it tastes very kind of thin
For sure.
and ineffectual. But if you suspend some of those flavors and some of those ingredients in like a 1-to-1 syrup kind of a thing, or even kind of like a heavy steeped liquid that you use a little bit of, then you get all of those flavors out of it, and it begins to mimic or imitate the spirit that it was based on. And so for somebody who's just, taking a break from alcohol, but they love being here at UnderTow, or they love being out with friends, then they're not missing out on anything, and their palate still gets to enjoy what they have taught it to enjoy over all those years.
What is this? This is
your Anchors Up. And
Okay.
so that's our
Yeah.
non-alcoholic Jamaican rum, London gin that's got that chartreuse in it, strawberry, coconut, ancho chili, lemon, pineapple, and a touch of buttered honey.
This is fantastic, right? Because
Good,
this is, yeah, absolutely, man. Because last time we were here, we went to, I brought some friends to Platform 18.
Mm-hmm.
And so the gin drinks are always like kind of a little bit more tangy, citrus forward. And so this is, like when you're going for an NA version, you're kind of sacrificing a little bit, like with beer, like,
For sure.
you're like, this is good. And it's, there are some really great options now, but this, I'm not really missing anything in this, maybe just the headache that I would get because I'm getting old, and
Yeah, alcohol is starting to do us dirty, and it's
That
not
is.
okay. I don't like that.
me neither.
For me, it's my stomach. It says, "Hey, buddy, you put us in here. We're gonna shut the party down. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
you're right.
Find a bathroom,
I'm sorry,
bro.
guys. Sorry, guys.
No, dude, this is incredible. This is really good.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah.
So we've gone through the menu. We've heard your story and the story of this place. Before we wrap, just kind of revisit with us when this menu, the greatest hits, will be phased out for the official new menu launch.
Sure, of course. The new menu will land on Tuesday, the 4th of June 4th, and we'll be running this greatest hits menu the entire month of May. And so, if you're worried that you're not going to be able to get in June and you want a taste of the new menu, we've got a couple of things on the greatest hits for you. And I'm going to send you guys home with a copy of it in case you need to reference it.
Sweet.
And then if you are worried that you're missing out on some of your favorite, your favorite cocktails from the last chapter, we've got those for you. And then in addition to that, it wouldn't be a greatest hits menu without a couple of cocktails from chapter 1 and chapter 3. And so we've got the Smoking Cannon and we've got the Smuggled Goods, which were two of the guest favorite, above and beyond. When we said we were releasing a greatest hits menu, the Instagram comments were bananas. They were like, I hope you're bringing back the Smoking Cannon. Like, wouldn't be a greatest hits without the Smoking Cannon. So we're like, okay, yeah, we're happy to bring back the Smoking Cannon. Because, that was the one that, originally had actual cinnamon smoke in it. And it was ordered so often that all of the bartenders, when they left at night, it was like they had been at a cinnamon smoking facility. They were just, like leave your clothes outside, hose yourself off in the yard, and then you can come in and be a member of the house again. But we made jokes that they were getting the cinnamon lung. Like I got the cinnamon lung pop.
China had like opium dens, right? Phoenix has
cinnamon dens.
Cinnamon dens.
They sound a lot less serious, but just as deadly.
Just as deadly, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We're very excited
My pleasure.
to hear the next chapter that's unfolding, and the level that you guys are doing everything at is just, second to none. So
100%.
Thank you so much for having us in today.
Thank you.
Definitely, I would imagine.
Literally anytime.
People need to start booking their reservations. Is that open that far out?
They 30 days out.
Okay.
Unless you know somebody, and if you know them, call them.
Okay.
And they can get you in whenever you need to get in. But usually about 30 days out, and both locations, the Gilbert and the Arcadia location, will be rolling on the same day. So if you're down in Gilbert and you don't want to leave your hood, then come see us down in Gilbert. And if you're right here in Arcadia, we'll see you on the 4th.
Wonderful. Well, it's such a pleasure chatting with you. You have a storied history in the industry. So thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Cheers. And
All
congrats on the new menu.
Hey, thank you.